Hello. Today I'm going to be reading Mr. Skinny. If there are any noises in the background, I am very sorry. Mr. Skinny. Mr. Skinny was extraordinarily thin. Painfully thin. If he turned sideways, you could hardly see him at all. And what made it even worse was that he lived in a place called Fatland. Yes, Fatland. Here's Mr. Skinny. As you can very well imagine, everything and everybody in Fatland was as fat as could be. Not stout, fat. Fatland dogs were extremely fat. Oh, look at that. Wouldn't like to meet one of those. Fatland worms were extraordinarily fat. That is the fattest worm I've ever seen. Fatland birds were exceedingly fat. I think that branch is gonna crack. And you should see a Fatland elephant. Phew! I would not want to bump into an angry Fatland elephant. I'd be sat on and squished to death. And there in the middle of all the fatness lives Mr. Skinny in the thinnest house you've ever seen. Poor Mr. Skinny. He didn't like being so different from everything and everybody, but there wasn't much he could do about it. You see, he hardly had any appetite at all. A Mr. Skinny meal was a very major affair. Look how thin that house is. Do you know what he had for breakfast? Try and take a guess. You can pause the video and guess. 1 cornflake. I would not be able to live with 1 cornflake for breakfast. And for lunch, if you want to guess, you can pause and think. You might even want to write your answers down on a piece of paper. Answer: 1 baked bean. How does this person survive? And for tea, try and guess. Nothing. And for supper, try and guess again. The world's smallest sausage. Oh look, that's the world's smallest sausage. Mr. Skinny. And after that felt so full, he went straight to bed in his long, thin bed, in his long, thin bedroom, in his long, thin house in Fatland. Oh, I do wish I could do something about my appetite, he sighed to himself, just before he went to sleep. I think, he thought, that I'd better go and see a doctor about it. And he went to sleep. Look at that! A thin bed! Such a thin bed carpet. Keep on going. And the following morning was lovely. A large fat sun shone down on the fat green trees and the fat yellow flowers, and through them walked Mr. Skinny on his way to see a doctor. The fat sun, the fat trees, the fat flowers. Oh, look how thin Mr. Skinny is. Poor Mr. Skinny. Dr. Plump. If you do not know what plump means quite a fat and jolly person. Come in, he wheezed as Mr. Skinny knocked at the door. Sit down, he wheezed as Mr. Skinny entered. And what? He wheezed, putting his plump fingers together. seems to be the trouble. Here he is. There
Look at that,
he is,
yes.
putting his fingers together. It's my appetite, explained Mr. Skinny. I'd like to be able to eat more so that I could put on a little weight. Yes, you are rather, how should I put it, thin, wheezed the doctor, looking at him over his glasses. I know, he continued. Let's start the treatment right now. He licked his lips. This very moment, he added. Oh, he looks happy. And he opened a drawer in his desk and took out an enormous cream cake. He put it on the desk in front of him and opened another drawer and took out half a dozen donuts. I think a dozen is 12. I'm not sure. Sorry if I'm wrong. And put them on the desk in front of him and opened another drawer and took out a dozen currant buns. I think that means 12. Sorry if I'm wrong. And put them on the desk in front of him. Elevences, he explained. I have no idea what elevences means. But it's only 10 o'clock, said Mr. Skinny. Who was counting? Wheezed Dr. Plum. Tuck in. Oh, I'd like to be Dr. Plum, just keeping some biscuits in his desk drawer. And without further ado, he and Mr. Skinny ate a lot. Who do you think is going to eat more? Dr. Plump or Mr. Skinny? I think it might be Dr. Plump, because judging by Mr. Skinny, he's a pretty skinny fellow. Mr. Skinny ate a dab of cream, a donut crumb, and one currant. Dr. Plum ate the rest. What? Who could resist such a mouth-watering dessert? Wheezed Dr. Plum, popping the last currant bun into his mouth. He just popped it into his mouth. He doesn't even bite it. And looking at Mr. Skinny, I see, he said. What do you mean about your appetite? He thought for a moment. Only one thing for it, he wheezed. This calls for drastic measure. And he picked up his telephone in his podgy fingers and dialed a number. There he is calling. Who do you think he's calling? Let's look at the back there. Mr. Strong? Mr. Fuzzy? I am not sure, and I'm not going to waste your time. Right. 100 miles away, the telephone rang. Wait, before I say, who was this? Hello, said a voice. Do you know who the voice was? Mr. Greedy speaking, said the voice. Mr. Greedy listened to what Dr. Plump had to say. You'd like Mr. Skinny to come to stay, he said. To build up his appetite? He added. Delighted, he agreed. Oh, I showed you this picture already. Oh, he looks pretty happy. He should live in Fatland, Mr. Skinny. And so, Mr. Skinny went to stay with Mr. Greedy. He stayed for a month, and during that time, Mr. Greedy did manage to increase Mr. Skinny's appetite. And so, at the end of the month, Mr. Skinny returned home happy. Ooh, look, there he is. Mr. Skinny and Mr. Greedy. With a tummy. A tummy was something Mr. Skinny had always wanted. I never knew I had it in me, he chuckled to himself. He was feeling so proud of his tummy, he decided to call in and see Dr. Plum on his way home. There he is with his tummy. I say, wheezed Dr. Plum, looking him up and down. Congratulations. Tell you what, he went on, this calls for a celebration. And he opened his desk drawer. There are no more pictures. Thank you.
Hi, Emma.
Hi. Thank you